Do you believe in justice above all else? To believe that it is you and only you that stands between society and collapse, that the cries of the masses must be suppressed for their own good, that all methods, no matter how violent and cruel, are necessary to maintain order? Would you oppress that minority for no other reason than it's what your superior ordered you to do? If you answered yes to any of the above questions, please enter therapy immediately. If therapy is not an option for you, however, perhaps I can interest you in a career within Iberia's Inquisition. The Inquisition are a fine and upstanding group of individuals who do nothing wrong ever. The Iberian Inquisition are the first and last line of defense against the Seaborn on Terra, a powerful organization holding the country of Iberia together following the Profound Silence. They stand as the bulwark against the dark forces that would send Iberia back into the dark. They have stood tall and mighty since the land's golden age came to a devastating end. And in order to carry out this task, they commit acts that would break those of lesser stock. But an organization like the Inquisition doesn't just appear out of thin air. What could possibly have happened to bring about such a force for good in the largest inverted commas you've ever seen? Or heard, cause you aren't reading this. The Kingdom of Iberia was once one of the most powerful nations on Terra. Formed by the Liberi, the bird people took the fate of the Sancta and formed their own nation around it. With a king who ruled through religious mandate and a religious class, the population was separated into nobility, priests, and commoners. The country grew strong while relying on the system, but when it came time to expand its borders, the mighty Victorian Empire stood as a bulwark against expansion. And as such, the young nation turned its attention elsewhere, to the sea. For the first time in Terra's history, the people of the land and sea began to cooperate. Brogan, a great inventor of Iger, made his way to land. The Seaborn had driven him and many other Iger to land seeking sanctuary. The royal family of Iberia were more than happy to welcome the technology these refugees brought with them. I suppose they appreciated the Iger as well, but started to refer to them as islanders, so maybe not. Over the next century, Brogan would lead Iberia into its golden age. Iberia officially became Terra's predominant maritime power, excluding the Iger of course, controlling vast quantities of the sea and possessing an incredibly powerful navy, all of which was symbolized by the mighty eyes of Iberia, enormous lighthouses that shone the light of civilization across Terra's waters. That was until the Seaborn arrived. Most within Iberia dismissed the threat. The warning of the islanders who fled from them were nothing but the ramblings of a minority. The Iberian nobility treated these new life forms as nothing more than a new curiosity, a mistake that would cost them dearly. But in their mind, the power of Iberia was eternal. The Church of the Deep would take this opportunity to spread its teachings throughout the land. They were from Iger just like the islanders, but unlike the islanders, they weren't running from the Seaborn, they were bringing the Seaborn to land to spread their religion. The cracks that would lead to Iberia's fall had already spread. Both the Seaborn and the Church of the Deep got their foot in the door while Iberia had its pants down, and the islanders were simply ignored. The decline of Iberia is symbolized nowhere better than with the Celtifera Navis, the crown jewel of the Grand Fleet. Originally designed as a seaborne research vessel by Brogan, the monarchy claimed it as their flagship, fitting it out as a warship. Brogan took exception to this, but was obviously dismissed as an islander. As a result, he would hide his research on the Seaborn aboard the ship as a small form of protest. Then, the Profound Silence came. A giant tsunami that washed away the Golden Age as if it was nothing more than a child's sandcastle. The aftermath of the silence was severe. Much of Iberia sank beneath the waves. The royal family sank alongside it. Then Seaborn. Nothing more than a nuisance before, it became an existential threat that rendered most of the coastline uninhabitable. The Great Armada that made Iberia a superpower was also overtaken by the sea. The eyes of Iberia were also lost to the waves. The Golden Age of Iberia came to an end, not with a bang, but with a whimper. Such devastation is uncommon, even on the war-torn continent of Terra. But hope was not lost. The disastrous effects of the Profound Silence awoke a fervent religious reaction. The country was praying for salvation, and by God, one man was going to give it to them. Enter scene Carmen, the first saint of Iberia. He has in fact been running around for a while now, but this is when he becomes very relevant. He was close friends with Rogan, the great inventor of Iger, and Alfonso, the admiral of Iberia's great fleet, so he's kind of a big deal. So much so that the church wished to crown Carmen Pope of Iberia. Carmen, in an act of genius, or maybe humility would be a better word, toned down this crown. Crowns had failed Iberia once, and Carmen wasn't about to make the same mistakes. Iberia needed a vanguard. A false leader would do nothing to support the crumbling country. Only the bodies of Iberia's finest would drive back the ocean's invasion and safeguard the land of Iberia from destruction. A holy inquisition to enact justice upon the world. And so Iberia's church was reorganized into the Iberian Inquisition, led by the newly anointed Saint Carmen and his 8 companions. The Inquisition retains much of the structures of the church, with priests and bishops becoming the grunt workers of the Inquisition. You don't need to profess the faith anymore, you gotta run the government now. Inquisitors are separated into 3 different groups: Saints, High Inquisitors, and Inquisitors. While we aren't given a specific limit to the powers of each group, Saints are the leaders of the Inquisition, so even if the title was only cosmetic, the respected commands would place them in a different tier when compared to the others. High Inquisitors are essentially veteran Inquisitors. They are vastly more capable than your standard Inquisitor. While seemingly not being a requirement, we have seen High Inquisitors take on apprentices in order to train them into full-fledged Inquisitors. Under the Inquisition, all of Iberia would be reorganized. Without a monarchy, the Inquisition would become the de facto government, establishing social stability by providing charity, food, and policing to the people of Iberia. But first, a scapegoat was needed. Iberia was on a knife's edge, and needed an enemy to rally against. Revealing the existence of the Seaborn was something Carmen was unwilling to do, but his old friend Brogan made an easy scapegoat. Rumors had begun to spread that it was the islanders' jealousy of Iberia's golden age that invited calamity on the nation. The Inquisition would act on this as a way of quelling the resentment building within the country, turning a blind eye to murders carried out by its people against islanders, Brogan, the chief engineer of Iberia's golden age, included. Even to this day, the Inquisition continues to arrest and execute many Igers based on nothing more than rumor. All of this was necessary, of course. The glory of Iberia can't be wiped away by a bit of innocent blood. The Inquisition, of course, remains in power to the present day, safeguarding and supporting Iberia as its pillar of strength and stability. Conservatism and isolationism are the defining characteristics of this nation now. Progress and expansionism brought destruction to Iberia, so the Inquisition maintains the status quo through the same tactics that held the country back from collapse following the Profound Silence. Strict policies and severe punishment await all who break the rules laid out by the Inquisition. Settlements along the coast of Iberia are left abandoned, easier to hide the truth of the Seaborn that way. Even looking into the Golden Age can be grounds for the Inquisition to turn its ire towards you. That wonderful Golden Age is lost, and those who seek it to satisfy their greed shall not be tolerated. Not being a citizen of Iberia is also no excuse. When the Inquisition is after you, you do not need to be a citizen. You have disrupted the public order, and as such, you shall submit yourself to the Inquisition's justice. To ensure justice is done, the Inquisitors are outfitted with quite a bit of firepower. I mean that in a literal sense. The standard equipment set for an Inquisitor is a rapier, a hand cannon, and a lantern that serves as an arts unit. The rapier is the traditional weapon of Iberia, so it's no surprise that the Inquisition makes use of them. Hand cannons are just a big gun. Considering that the Inquisition's roots are within an offshoot of the Lateran religion, it shouldn't be a surprise that Inquisitors stay strapped up. And of course, their iconic lantern. By channeling their arts through the lantern, an Inquisitor is able to generate purifying light, shown on many occasions to be able to keep the Seaborn at bay, from your Novice Inquisitor to your High Inquisitor. The primary difference between them is not a question of strength, but experience. So, what exactly are the limits of an Inquisitor's power? If you've ever read or heard about Warhammer 40k Inquisitors, or Fantasy's Witch Hunters, you have a pretty good idea of what things they can get away with. Effectively, everything. We covered a lot of it while discussing the formation of the Order, but I can list off some of it again. The Inquisition is the government of Iberia, which is a level of power that not even 40k Inquisitors can claim to have. The Inquisition is in charge of the military. The primary form of this is as the Penal Battalion. Inquisitors, as the government, are also in control of towns, cities, and people within Iberia. individual Inquisitors can claim ownership of towns and lead them down the path to justice. So yeah, one day an Inquisitor could roll up to your home and say, "I'm running this place now," and you just gotta accept it. Religious persecution, specifically against the Iberian immigrants, is not only tolerated, but promoted by the Inquisition. You need an outgroup to maintain order in a crisis, so innocent people are expendable. They suppress knowledge of the Seaborn as well in all of its forms. Leaving the coastline mostly uninhabited does this well enough, but sometimes the Inquisition gets their hands dirtier, which leads to mass purges to prevent the spreading of corruption, moral corruption, or Seaborn corruption. Either is grounds for a purge, so just hope you have an Inquisitor that only wants to root out Seaborn corruption. You know, typical Inquisitor things. The power they wield is exactly why it is important that Inquisitors know why they are operating the way they are. While some madmen slip through the cracks, the duty carried out by the Inquisition is a necessary evil, until the darkness is thrown back from Iberia's borders. So you've got the introduction, and you can leave it here if you want, but I think it's time to look at some of the notable members of the Inquisition. Not necessarily in that much detail, but just so you can tell all your friends about your new favourite war criminals. Saint Corman has been discussed before, and aside from our playable Inquisitors, he's the most important member of the Inquisition. As the founding member of the Inquisition, his power and influence within Iberia is absolute. If anyone can be blamed for the atrocities committed by the Inquisition, it is him, and he would willingly accept such blame. He knows what he has done and lives under no illusion as to the consequences that his actions have had. Religious persecutions? Guilty as charged. The execution of innocent civilians? Yeah, he did that shit. All for the survival of Iberia. Even now, he is still changing to keep Iberia alive. Personally welcoming the first Iger into the Inquisition. Not to make up for past actions, but to keep Iberia safe and alive. Saint Corman is old. At 123 years of age, he has seen Iberia at the heights of the Golden Age and its fall into this darkness. He will be the light that keeps Iberia going, and he will see his people free from the grasp of the Seaborn if it's the last thing he does. High Inquisitor Dario is up next, and is unironically kind of the perfect Inquisitor, cruel and just in equal measure. He is the example of an Inquisitor who does evil only insofar as it is necessary, while at the same time being wise enough to understand the importance of his task. Obviously, this meant as a mentor to Irene, he was going to die. Currently, he is the only High Inquisitor that we have actually met. He is Irene's master and an incredibly capable Inquisitor. Ulpanius even complimented him for his strength, which, if you know anything about that Abyssal Hunter, is a pretty impressive statement. While training Irene, he attempted to reinforce the importance of having sound judgment into the young woman. It wasn't enough for an Inquisitor to simply act for the betterment of Iberia. One had to understand the consequences of their actions and be able to live with them. For him, if executing a city was necessary, he would do it, but he wouldn't delude himself. There was no reason in his mind to dehumanize those he would punish. You have to live with the pain you inflict on others. That way, you wouldn't lose yourself to the power you wield. Cope? Potentially, but he's cool, so I fuck with it. He would give his life in service to the Inquisition during the events of Saltifera Navis, leaving behind his disciple as his legacy. Irene is technically no longer an Inquisitor. As a child, her town was wiped out due to a natural disaster, and Dario was the one to save her. Following that, she wished to become a perfect Inquisitor like him. Unfortunately, her devotion to Dario blinded her to the nuances of the world. Dario, of course, would try to teach the importance of that nuance, but wasn't successful till the fish people would enter the scene. Irene starts Undertides as a rather strict Inquisitor. It is only her experiences beside the Abyssal Hunters that causes her to broaden her horizons. Recognizing the strength that could come from working alongside them, it leads her into protecting the people of Sal Viento. She would also serve as the Inquisitor that worked alongside the Abyssal Hunters during the hunt for the Saltifera Navis. She would retire from the Inquisition following the death of Dario, becoming the liaison between the Inquisition and Rhodes Island. She retired not because she had lost faith in the Inquisition, but because she didn't believe that the Inquisition could bridge the gap between Iberia and Iger. Not the civilization of Iger, but the people hurt by the Inquisition. She's still not perfect, but is slowly stepping into the role that Dario has left behind. By the end of the Abyssal Hunter storyline, I would not be surprised at all if Irene was named High Inquisitor. She is personally my favourite character from that entire series of stories, so I do hope they continue to develop her into the future. Lumen is the first of the Iger to become an Inquisitor. From simple beginnings, his parents were taken away by the Inquisition in an attempt to repair the Eye of Iberia. This would of course result in his parents never returning. During the hunt for the Saltifera Navis, he was mistaken as a descendant of Drogan, and travelled alongside the Inquisition to the Eye of Iberia, where he would reactivate the dormant machine. Following playing this pivotal role in finding the ancient warship, he would eventually take a boat out to sea to follow the Abyssal Hunters and Irene. He would arrive just after the destruction of the Saltifera Navis and would provide the quartet with transport back to land. Following successfully pulling off all that, Lumen would be brought into the Inquisition by Corman personally. Since then, he has been working hard to learn all that he can about Iger and the Inquisition. Anastasio is batshit insane. The token completely fucked Inquisitor. Bro started life as a cannibal. His mother fed him his own fodder just to keep him alive. He was saved in, yet again, the biggest inverted commas ever by the Inquisition, who told him that his sins could be redeemed if he became an Inquisitor and prevented sin. This Inquisitor should lose his license as an Inquisitor, by the way, because why would you make this mentally deranged child an Inquisitor? Since then, he seeks out those with sinful desires and forces them to repent, typically by torturing and killing them. Bro is so messed up that he cuts away pieces of his own flesh whenever he feels his own desires rising up. Even after all the people he has redeemed, he knows it is not enough to wash away his sins, which leads him into committing more heinous acts to find that redemption. Bro even decorates his weapons with the bones of his victims. So, if nothing else, at least he committed fully to the bit, even killing other Inquisitors if they succumb to their desires. And speaking of, Silver is high-key the fraudulent Inquisitor. Dude is for the most part a pretty normal dude. No extreme beliefs, no misguided crusade, no delusions of grandeur. Just a man helping out a community that needs him. Yes, he imposes strict guidelines to live by, but that was necessary at the time when he made his home in Aeron. His teachings have created a fairly large base of Inquisitorial warriors, giving the size of the town he calls home, so that's something. All that came to an end when Anastasio made his way into Silver's life. The Mad Inquisitor would push his people into a frenzy, and when Silver sought to regain control, he was punished for giving into his earthly desires. So yeah, there's quite a lot of variety to be found within the Inquisition. Heroes, villains, protagonists, antagonists. To describe them as simply evil would be dismissing the times that created such an organization. If our way of life came crashing down around us, maybe we too would turn to extreme solutions. Probably could have skipped inciting some genocide, but you can't make Big Brother without squashing some innocence. But I think the motto that the Inquisition, or at least Irene and Dario, live by sums up the organization fairly well. For Iberia's prosperity, for Iberia's defense, and for Iberia's orderliness and integrity, I shall raise my sword and my light. They're not perfect, but they stand in defiance of the dark that would consume Iberia and those that call it their home, even if, at the same time, they might be consuming some of those people. Going to be a YouTuber now, so I got some videos on the channel that, tell you the story of events involving these guys. If you specifically want one to look at, I would recommend the Abyssal Hunter storyline Badly Explained, just because it gives you a good idea of the land that you're going into when you're looking at Iberia. With that being said though, shout out to the members of the factory. You were the hand cannon to my Inquisitor, putting down the innocent civilian so that I may continue to prosper. Y'all, be good people, and I will talk to you in the next one.